Welcome to the Full-Time FBA Show. In each episode, it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling almost anything on Amazon. And now, your hosts of the show, Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman.
Hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. We're on episode number 228 this week, and we're going to be talking about when or if it's time to fire your wholesale supplier. Not that fun of a topic, but it's one that's really important if you're going to get into wholesale sourcing and you want to protect yourself as a reseller. With me here today to talk about this is my business partner and podcast co-host, Stephen Smotherman.
I say fire him. All right, that's it for today.
No, we got to go into why.
If.
I don't want to fire them, but sometimes you have to. So.
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you don't have to. You could fire someone too early. We want to stop you from doing that. So that's what we'll talk about on this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show.
And of course, we're using the word fire in scare quotes here because you're not really firing them. You're just not working with them anymore as a supplier. You can't fire somebody that you haven't actually hired.
That is accurate.
Just to be accurate, yes.
Yes.
So sometimes when you find a wholesale supplier, things are going to start off great. And you're thinking that they're starting off great. And then there's some red flags. We talked about some of those last week in episode 227. So be sure and listen to that if you haven't already yet, to find out what some of those red flags are that we're talking about. And if you didn't see those red flags before you signed up with this supplier, got an account, started selling their items, you might see them coming up again and again afterwards. This isn't for every wholesale supplier, but sometimes this happens. We're talking things like a lack of clear communication, confusing pricing models, and just an overall frustrating sourcing experience. This can happen. You think, we got a wholesale account, yay. But then once you get going, it's just not as amazing as you thought it was going to be. So what do you do at that point? You're thinking, I just want to fire this wholesale supplier and move on. So should you ghost them? Should you try to work things out? What do you do? That's what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to jump right in and answer one of those questions. Definitely don't ghost them. Okay, don't do that. And if you don't know what ghosting is, it means just completely ignoring them and never replying to them or communicating with them at all with no explanation. So don't do that. No matter what has happened in the business world, it might still be possible to save the relationship, to save the potential profits. So let's look at some different situations and see if we can come up with some solutions for the problem that's causing you to want to break things off from your current supplier. So situation number one, your contact is not the actual brand, but it's actually a distributor of the brand. Remember to try to reach out and get the wholesale direct brand if you can, but if you're not able to, still see if that distributor is offering profitable products that you can buy at their distributor prices. Yes, distributor prices are going to be higher than buying from the brand directly, but sometimes this means that the brand only sells to $1 million sellers, and so buying from a distributor is the next best path to go down.
And if you're wanting to buy from a brand or a distributor, but there's no easy way to complete a purchase online with a credit or debit card, and I always suggest using a credit card if you have one.
Yes.
Pay it off every month, but use a credit card for your own protection so that you aren't risking your information online that can be stolen and then have funds removed from you fraudulently. Not from the wholesale account, but from anybody who steals credit card information.
Right.
But if you're wanting to buy from them and they have some weird method of payment that you're not comfortable with, then you might be tempted to just send the money via a bank transfer. Or if it's a local brand, they may ask you to come and pay in cash. I would just wait and look into that further. We've had one brand that we worked with that they always wanted us to fax the credit card number with our order form, which is weird in 2024. So we started out small and that risk was small. And then over time, as my warehouse worker at the prep center out of state that we work with received that inventory and it started selling on Amazon, then we just started to increase our orders over time because we became comfortable with it. Just don't send someone a ton of cash or a big bank transfer for an online order. You really want to test it out and let the supplier earn your trust. But if the supplier does not earn your trust, and things are fishy and you're not getting the inventory that you were thinking that you would, then it's time to break all business relationships with them and just kindly say goodbye or deal with it however you need to deal with it if there was anything fraudulent going on.
Right. Another situation you might find yourself in when sourcing from a wholesaler is some confusion on the actual pricing. If this situation continues to occur again and again, simply communicate with your supplier and talk about your frustration. Mention that before we move to another supplier, try to get that little nudge in there so that you could like to bring some more clarity to the reality of pricing, i.e. clarity on bulk pricing and clarity on any fee added after you've made the first part of your buying decisions. If they're not able to work with you on this with clarity, then it's time to either speak to their supervisor or walk away from the opportunity.
And then there's the issue of unreliable communication. So if the situation is simply frustrating and it seems to get worse as the relationship continues, then it's at that point necessary for you to have a conversation just to express your frustrations. Maybe that supplier is going through a hard time. Maybe your contact is having a difficulty in doing their job, and they just don't even realize that they're not communicating well. So if you bring up your frustration with them with examples of what's going on, it might help them to realize that either their personal life is negatively impacting their business or they need to step up their game somehow. And that might help solve some of those inconsistent and unreliable communication issues. And then if that lack of quality communication just continues, then it's time to either talk with their supervisor, who could possibly give you a new contact to work with, or it's time to say, you know what, this isn't working for me, and you can walk away from that situation politely.
So let's say you're ready to fire your supplier. That's fun to say, fire your supplier. Anyway, what's the best way to have that breakup conversation with a supplier without burning any bridges? Because it's not a good situation right now, but who knows what the future is going to hold. Well, before starting that breakup conversation, make sure that you have a solid backup plan in place. Basically, have a replacement supplier in place before you end things so that you don't experience any downtime with sales. Just in case, double check your contract with the current supplier to make sure there aren't any termination clauses if you have a contract with them. So you can always just be sure that you're in the up and up with any of the terms in the documents. So clearly communicate your reasons for ending the relationship in a kind and professional manner. Even if your supplier acts out against you, don't react or engage. Just keep things professional the whole time. And even if you decide to never do business with them again, it's always important to act in a professional manner.
And just personally, you don't want to say or do anything that you regret later.
Right.
You want to be nice no matter what's going on. You can be professional and firm and state your reasons without being a jerk. And we do want you to know that these situations where you might need to fire a wholesale rep they are just super rare. Most of the time, you're going to find a wholesale rep who's very kind and eager to work with you, and they will take and fulfill your orders for your Amazon business in a very pleasant manner. Now, if you're still waiting on getting started with wholesale, what are you waiting for at this point? Now is one of the best times to learn and earn with selling wholesale inventory on Amazon. In fact, this week, there's a special webinar for you to learn what it takes to successfully start selling wholesale items on Amazon this year. To sign up for the webinar, go to fulltimefba.com/wholesale webinar. If the webinar has already finished and has been recorded, then that link will take you to the limited time replay. And if the replay is no longer there, that same link will take you to the wait list so that you will be the first notified when the free wholesale training opens up again. That link again is fulltimefba.com/wholesale webinar. Be sure that you get signed up as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. We're on episode number 228, so any links that were mentioned in this episode, as well as the show notes, can be found at fulltimefba.com/228.
And next week on the Full-Time FBA Show, we're going to walk you through why you should not sign up for Amazon's SIPP program. Do you not know what that is? I didn't for a while. I learned about it. You do not want to sign up for this program at all. They're going to make it sound like it's awesome. Don't sign up for it. We'll tell you next week on the Full-Time FBA Show.
That's all for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. So head over to fulltimefba.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and links from this episode. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter where you'll get several free downloads of our popular and helpful Amazon FBA resources. Now, take action on what you've learned today so you can find success at turning part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA.